I think that one of the most important goals that the four of us have been working towards is trying to find ways to meaningfully involve children in the process of making these very difficult decisions at the end of life. And one of the most important questions related to that is, what's the appropriate way to involve children? We certainly don't want to turn them into little adults and turn over all the decision-making powers to the children. At the same time, it's the child's life that we're talking about. And at the end of life, when there are only a few weeks or months left, it seems very important to have as part of the decision-making process the things that are important to the children, things they're afraid of, the things they would like to do. How do you make that a part of the decision-making process? That's the big question that we have. Getting to the answer is the reason that we need this research. I'm a pediatric oncologist, and one of the reasons that I was so excited to be involved in this kind of research is my own experience with how difficult decision-making is at the end of life. Every aspect of decision-making, from understanding a child's experience, understanding a family's experience, understanding the reality of a progressive disease, acknowledging that we're not going to be able to cure a child, and understanding how to approach priorities at the end of life. This is one of the hardest things that we come up against in my field. And it's most certainly the same in neonatology. It's certainly the same in any area where children are facing life-limiting diseases.
And so I think this is where this collaboration came together, as while we all had an interest broadly in understanding children's experiences with life-threatening illnesses, we really collaborated to come up with an approach that would allow us to explore and understand the messiness of a phenomenon like this. You know, it's not the kind of research question that lends itself easily to an experimental or quasi-experimental design where you can control all the extraneous variables. Instead, you have to study it as it naturally occurs and as it prospectively unfolds in the clinical setting. And so I think that that's what the strength of this team brings together expert clinicians, researchers, and developmentalists to design the kind of study that will allow us to naturally study this as it unfolds, and in a clinical setting that is very active, very busy, and very intense.
And I think what we know from the work we've done thus far is that there's no right or wrong way, and there are different strategies that are likely to work for different kinds of families. But to get at that question, we are thinking that our next research project will need to use a method where we can study the family intensely with the care providers, and including information and communication from the child to help get the best picture of how the team works together to make decisions under these extreme circumstances at the end of life.
Yeah, I think, adding on to that, one of the things that all of us have observed that is lending some urgency to this is, especially given that it's focused on listening to the voice of a child, whatever that may mean, is that in the middle of decision making at the end of life, because it can be so scary, and because our habits up until then have been to look at, well, what's the next treatment intervention? What's the next treatment intervention? What's the next treatment intervention? It's very easy in the middle of that kind of scary situation for a child's voice to be muted or lost. not because anyone doesn't want to listen to the children, because it's just very difficult and scary.
I think that's true. And I think in working at a great medical center like Duke, where we are known for the curative treatments, it becomes important for us to also say Duke is also very good at helping families make this transition where the treatments are not available at this point in time, and making this last transition. And so from a research perspective, being able to describe what it is that we can do for families becomes a really important goal. I think that's what I'm so fortunate. I always think about having Julie on the team. She really brings the developmentalist aspect to what we do.
So absolutely. My
Yeah.
developmental part of me says, well, different children need to hear different things and need to be asked different things and express things different ways. And I think one of the most surprising outcomes that we found as a team is maybe that children are more than willing, even at a very young age, to share their preferences and their goals, how they want to spend their day-to-day lives. And a lot of times I think we may forget how, I keep using the word, but how aware they are of themselves, their conditions, their surroundings, and that maybe giving them more of a voice is something that's necessary and something that we've overlooked. Part of me says, well, different children need to hear different things and need to be asked different things and express things different ways. So all of that also is really important, how we approach
Julie
it.
always keeps us honest with that piece. Well, wait a minute, let's look at the age of the child, and let's look at the appropriateness of this question or this technique, and I think it just makes for a really nicely rounded approach to asking these questions.